Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Faye Bishop Report, where you know the culture is news. Yesterday, R&B singer and celebrity chef Khalees opened up for the very first time in 9 years about her high-profile celebrity marriage of 5 years to rapper Nas, often considered one of the greatest to ever do it and one of the greatest alive. In her interview, Khalees sat down with Hollywood Unlocked's own Jason Lee, and she discussed her high-profile marriage to Nas and said, and I quote, "I have edited myself for 9 years and I woke up this morning and said, not today." In this interview that was nearly 2 hours long, recorded at her home, Khalees described her marriage to Nas as tumultuous and toxic. She talks about a lot of the physical and mental abuse that she endured during the marriage, going into many, many details about how her fairy tale was far from reality. She described how they fought frequently and how Nas's drinking problem often led to the point of him being blacked out, like he would black out and become extremely violent towards her. Khalees did note that she would fight back in self-defense, and she said that Nas would often wake up with no memories of the events and he would cover it up with gifts. He would shower her with gifts. Khalees said in the interview that she recalls feeling empathy for singer Rihanna when details of her abuse at the hands of Chris Brown had emerged publicly, when the pictures of her bruised and battered face appeared on TMZ. And she says she felt empathy because she, Khalees, found herself in the same predicament literally at the same time. She said, and I quote, "I remember so clearly when the pictures came out with that whole thing that happened with Rihanna and Chris Brown. And the only way I can describe it was like double dutch. I felt like, do I jump in? Do I say it? Because I had bruises all over my body at that time. That day, I remember being in Atlanta, sitting in the kitchen, and I wasn't even ready to walk." She says that the relationship was so toxic that during her pregnancy, that is when she decided she couldn't take it anymore and that she had to file for a divorce because she could not, and I quote her, bring her child into the world under this mess. In addition to the alleged abuse, Khalees stated that by the time she filed for divorce, which cited irreconcilable differences in April 2009, she discovered that Nas had been cheating for 2 years, and she said she was pregnant with her son Knight at the time. She gave birth in July of that year, and less than a year later, their divorce was finalized. Now, up until this point, Khalees has been pretty private about the details of her marriage to Nas. Back in 2012, Nas released the album Life is Good, and he is seated on the cover with part of his ex-wife's green dress draped over his leg, which he stated was left behind when they split, which he said in interviews at the time of the album's release. Nas has never acknowledged any physical abuse, but he has talked about their relationship a little bit on that Life is Good album, most particularly in the song Bye Baby, which featured vocals by Aaron Hall. At the current time, since this interview was released yesterday, Nas has not commented on anything, any of the accusations, any of the alleged abuse, or anything like that. Khalees did emphasize in this interview she had yesterday with Hollywood Unlocked that she stayed in the marriage because she really wanted to make the relationship work. Like, she did not want to quit it. She said, and I state, "I felt like this is my partner. I chose this. We're going to do this. We're going to make it work." I stayed for years after that, which means in spite of the alleged domestic abuse. And she says, "I kept it moving. Like I said, I'm not frail. I'm not scared. I'm not weak." You guys, if you have not watched this interview, I do encourage you at some point, if you have about an hour of your time to lend, to head on over to Hollywood Unlocked and watch it. It is a really, really, really good interview. my personal opinion, it is one of the most honest and raw interviews that I have seen a celebrity female give in quite a long time. I think honestly the only other person who may have been like upfront and just raw and out there like that was probably Tina Turner. Whitney Houston is also another raw interview that was really good that I can remember. Really went in and just laid it all on the line about what took place during her marriage to Bobby Brown. Khalees doesn't really badmouth him in a way where it's just like, fuck this guy and yada, yada, yada. But she does pretty much share her experience and says, this is what happened to me. This is what I endured. And then I realized that this wasn't good for me and that I had to get out of it. I had to remove myself. Now, if you have been following my channel thus far, because it is still kind of new, you guys already know that I have spoken on these several times on these kinds of relationships and how society has basically normalized dysfunction and how we have taken to normalize dysfunction in our relationships. And it's so unfortunate that we live in a culture where they drill it into our psyche on a regular basis by way of the lyrics in the music, you know, and Lemonade albums and reality TV shows that this is our way of life. And this is the way you are supposed to carry about in your interpersonal relationships. That chaos and struggle is a part of, you know, who we are and what we're supposed to do and deal with, you know, in a partnership, in a marriage. And the reality is that it's not. And it's a really, really disgusting message to cling to. Now, this isn't to say that all relationships are supposed to be minty fresh and squeaky clean. Of course not. Life doesn't work that way for anyone. However, it's not supposed to be dysfunctional and chaotic either. You are not supposed to be physically, mentally, verbally, and emotionally abused. You are not supposed to be cheated on. You are not supposed to be mistreated. You are not supposed to be drained of every ounce of who you are until the point where you are completely diminished in a relationship. I don't care what your favorite rapper says. I don't care what your favorite pop singer says. This is not normal. Do not do it. Stay away, steer clear, and get out of it if you can. And the reason I talk about it so much is because you have so many men and so many women who get their social consciousness and a lot of their relationship influence from these rappers, you know, from these drunken rock stars and reality TV stars and pop singers alike. And the stuff that we hear in the music and the stuff that we see on these TV shows is a lot of dysfunctional, violent, misogynistic, and homophobic behavior, and it's not healthy. And that's the side of the hip hop and arts and entertainment world that we really need to speak on more, because it's not by coincidence that we keep hearing these stories and we keep hearing about it. It's showing and pointing to a bigger problem. And again, we need to talk about it a lot more. I really admire Khalees for coming forward and sharing her story and sharing her experience, because whether or not you decide you agree with what she's saying or whether or not you decide you believe what she's saying, the fact of the matter is that this is a reality for a lot of people. I know we tend to see the best in celebrities. We tend to live vicariously through celebrities because they provide this fantasy for us that makes us feel like, you know, there's this beautiful unicorn story for us all at the end of the rainbow, when the fact of the matter is that it's not all Skittles and rainbows. People, both famous and infamous, enter into toxic relationships all of the time, and they also get out of them. And it's likely because they realize that there is just no amount of fame or money in the world that makes it all worth staying for. And that's commendable to me. You know, that is a sign of strength and courage and bravery. And if nothing else, you know, if you pull nothing else from this interview that Khalees gave, you know, at least acknowledge that much, because that could help somebody out there right now who may be going through something similar. And so, again, if you have not had a chance Go over, watch that interview. I promise you'll be glued to your screen because it is so worth watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think about what she said and everything that she shared. And let me know how you feel about how we as a culture, as a whole, are normalizing dysfunctional, behaviors and normalizing dysfunction and chaos in relationships, because we definitely need to have a lot more dialogue about this subject. Again, don't forget to tell me what you think. Don't forget to like, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'll catch you guys next report.